All right, welcome back, everybody, to another Monday agent call review. As I say on every call, you guys should be having your mentor do this for you. It really makes a huge difference to figure out what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, so you can hopefully always do what's right. I'm actually going to do something a little different today, and I have Mr. Chris Jacobs with us. He has been graciously enough to allow us to listen to one of his calls, and we're just going to kind of go over it. I've been getting a lot of really good feedback that you guys prefer to have the agent on the call. So that's the ultimate goal, is so you can kind of hear his thoughts on what was said or maybe what wasn't said. And then I'll give my feedback also in the meantime. So don't forget, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence isn't an act, it's a habit. So do me a favor, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell down below so that way you guys get notified of all my videos. And let me know where maybe you're struggling down in the comments. Maybe you guys want me to listen to a certain call of yours. So don't hesitate to shoot it to me. With that said, guys, let's get into it.
Hey, it's Chris. I'm calling about the request you put in on Facebook for final expense insurance. How you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good. You put your email as, or maybe that was your
On Facebook?
maybe that was your wife that, because it says beneficiary spouse. So I'm assuming maybe that was your wife or you that did it.
No, my wife evidently. I don't
Oh,
do anything on Facebook. Not
okay.
no requests.
Is your wife around?
Yes, she is.
I was hoping
She's
to speak.
inside.
I was hoping to speak to her about, the information that she asked about, if you don't mind.
Okay, well, all right. Let me get back on the inside then.
Okay. I think I heard a rooster outside. Do you have
Oh, you
roosters?
did. No, that's my neighbor.
Oh, the neighbor. Okay.
Yes. Hold on just a moment.
Yeah,
Get this
take your
phone to
time.
me.
I'm in no rush. I called you, so I'm good.
Get on Facebook.
Stop it.
Hello?
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 Speak. Hello?
Hi, is it?
Yeah, this is, yes.
Yeah, this is Chris. I was calling about the request that you put in on Facebook for like burial insurance, final expense insurance.
It's not for me, it's for my husband.
Yep, for your
And yeah.
go for Alonzo. I got it. Okay. The email,
Yeah,
and I assume you're the beneficiary.
I am.
Okay, great. So I've got the right person. Bia, how long have you been looking into options for coverage?
Well, I've been looking for a while. My husband been looking, and I just saw this on
Facebook.
the app. I just saw it.
Okay.
I want to see what it is, how much it is, but you can talk with him, and he can tell you how much he wants.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that's fine.
Hello?
Hi. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. So I asked your wife, and she said that you guys are looking to see what the coverage would cost. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. As I mentioned, my name is Chris, and I'm a broker underwriter. So that means that I see all the insurance companies in your state of Louisiana, and I'm obviously licensed in Louisiana. And I shop all the insurance companies to get you the best rate. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, perfect. So can you tell me, what your thoughts and concerns are? What you're trying to, is it a burial? Is it a cremation? Do you want to leave money for your spouse? What are you thinking about?
Well, it's a burial, and I did want to leave some money for it.
Okay, all right. So a burial, and you want to leave a little bit of money. That sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
So, quick question: if you did pass with no insurance, how would your family right now? Like, how would they cover it? Do they have the money in the bank? Would they have to take out a loan? How would that work?
They would have to take out a loan.
Yep, same with me. I mean, that's Alonzo. That's why I asked, because I knew the answer. I mean, most people don't have that kind of money just laying around. It's look, we're all on a budget, and that's what I'm going to get to next. Is the most important thing to all of this is your budget. I could tell you it's $9.99 for $10,000, like the TV commercials, but that would be misleading. Okay, I don't do that. So what do you feel is actually affordable without taking food off the table? Are you looking at $100, a little less, a little more?
Well, no more than about $100.
All right, so $100, that would be, if we could find you something at around $100, that would be comfortable for you?
Should it be enough?
Yeah, we'll figure that out. So before we get into it, do you know the difference between term insurance and whole life?
We don't want term.
Right. You don't term terminates, whole life lasts your whole life, and that's what I do. I only do whole life insurance. So anything that I talk to with you and your wife is going to be whole life. It never changes due to age or health, and the price is guaranteed to never increase. There's no probate court, no attorneys involved, and the money would go directly to your beneficiary, your wife, whoever it, and kids, whoever it is. I know it's your wife. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. And getting into obviously it's based on age and health. So what is your date of birth? Liz and brother are right there. It's almost the same birthdays. Okay. So you are.
All right, so let's take a quick pause there and recap a few things. So right out the gate, I want to say very, very good job. I really like your tonality in this. You're very positive sounding, but not over the top, like trying to swindle him or anything. You're very confident in what you're saying. I have very little to say so far other than really great job, right? You followed the script and you're really hitting the points. It's not always necessarily about full on following the script. It's really about hitting each point. Sometimes those get mixed up, but even asked him, what would you do if you didn't have anything, right? The only recommendation with that question, or the only really recommendation that I would have for an extra question would be, do you currently have anything, or have you ever had your own personal plan? Right.
Right. That makes sense. Yep.
Yeah,
I asked that now. This was a little bit earlier. A month ago.
The just so everybody understands why you want to ask that is the whole goal is always to find out if you've got a prospect or a suspect. And by asking that question of, so have you ever had anything, or do you currently have something? One, currently, if you have something, then we need to figure out what it is and what you're trying to do. But the other thing is if you've had something before, you need to really figure out why they've lost what they had. Many good reasons out there as to why somebody loses their coverage. But There's also some really bad reasons, well, I didn't like the way that agent talked to me, or I never got my paperwork and I waited 2 days. You get the weirdest things
Yeah.
why people cancel policies. And that doesn't mean if you get an answer, one of those bad answers, that doesn't mean that you just up and hang up on them or you get super rude, but you do need to push back on somebody who is saying such
Hmm.
things, right? The only, another very minor recommendation that I would have for you is I noticed that you slowed down as you kind of got into the call. You took a little bit more time,
Hmm.
or you're saying things just a little bit slower. You started off the call pretty quick and saying things pretty quick, and I would just
Yeah.
recommend to match the style of your client. They'll typically respond much better. This is one of those situations where you've got somebody who is very responsive already and is
Yeah.
clearly looking
Yeah.
to get something. So in this situation, it's really not going to matter. Another couple just very minor things. So when it comes to like their email address and their beneficiary information and stuff,
Hmm.
I would recommend saying I just to verify. So
All right.
the reason is to let them know that you're trying to make sure they are who they say are. You know they are,
Hmm.
right? You're calling their number.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
that increases the trust factor because it shows a little bit more that you're a professional and that you've got a job to do, and that, I mean, you're licensed. You got to make sure you are talking to who you should be talking to.
Yeah. Maybe more official,
Yes,
right?
yes, that's exactly right. So, and then the other thing that I like to say, again, I know not everybody says it this way, but I try to recommend to say it this way. And that is when it comes to the license in the state, I always like to say, so obviously I'm a licensed broker here in the state of Mississippi or whatever it is,
Hmm.
right? Obviously, I'm a licensed broker here in the state. That doesn't mean that you're trying to tell somebody that you live there,
Right. Right.
but it does give the impression that you're in that state. And you're not lying to them. You're not telling
Hmm.
them that you're actually there, but also don't want to raise a red flag that you're
Hmm.
not in the state because
Right.
you will get, again, this is a situation, and that's why I say it's a minor critique. Is in this situation, you could have told him that you were from Mars, and he seems very interested. As long as you do everything else right, I don't think he would care. But for someone who's a little more hard nosed, if you say, obviously I'm a licensed broker here in Mississippi, that allows them to create whatever thought they want of where you're at. I would never recommend anybody to say, just for the record, for you bullies out there, I would never recommend anybody to lie to somebody and say that I am here in the state. That's
Oh
not.
man, that's a no way. That's
Yeah,
because
it's
look,
so
I don't
easy to catch you
sound.
up.
There are a lot of southern states where they know I'm not down
Yeah.
south. I mean, in
Yes.
all likelihood, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I try
Agreed.
to be
Agreed.
honest with them.
And
Yeah.
it's going to come out, right? If you're doing your job as you should and going through the
Yeah.
right processes, it's going to come out that you're not in that state. So I'd never recommend anybody to lie. It's just
Yeah.
if someone believes, I've had people who have literally told me after the end of the call that, well, they've asked me, like towards the end of the call, so where exactly are you located? And I'll be like,
Yeah.
I'm over here. And they'll come back and they'll say, oh wow, so you're not in the state. Wow, I'm glad I didn't know that because I don't know that I would have kept talking to you. It's
There are some.
literally.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I've
a-
had it.
and my theory is if you can just get one extra sale by doing that, that's one extra sale you weren't going to get before. I was really waiting to hear what you were going to say on the budget part. The way you kind of let it off, I thought, ooh, I wonder if he's actually going to ask the you thinking somewhere around $100, and you did. You
Yeah. Yeah.
perfectly
Yeah.
did, man. And that's.
I try to do that. I try not to assume. So I start usually at $100 and I'll say little less, little more, because I don't want to. When I first started, I would go really low.
Yes.
and that's where they're going to go typically.
Yes.
So yeah, so I
Yes.
followed the
100%.
script, you know.
Yes. Yes. 100%. And I get it. It's natural to be a little skittish to ask how much they're willing to spend, right? You
Right.
want to let them tell you what they want to spend, right? I've run into that with several agents where they just want to ask, well, so what are you wanting to spend monthly, right? What's comfortable for you to spend monthly? I mean,
Right.
everybody's
So
going to
open
say
end
$10,
50
you know?
or 50 bucks.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
You know,
exactly, exactly.
$50. Yeah.
So,
So
um,
yeah, it's a tough way to ask it because it's just so open ended that
yes, yes.
doesn't really work.
And by asking, like you said, you ask $100, they're probably going to be somewhere in that range. And if they're not, like you did, you kind of left it as, or maybe something a little lower, and by leaving it slightly open like that, not saying, well, or do you want to go lower, but you said somewhere
Right.
maybe a little bit lower or something, you're leaving it as if, okay, if that's a shock to you, tell me, and then we're just going to go for what you're looking for, or what
Yeah.
you can afford. So
I try to
definitely,
say a little lower, a little higher. Yeah, I try to give them just a little range, I guess.
again, definitely compliments on the whole process. So I can already see, for those of you who haven't picked up on it already, he is about to make a sale with this one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's one comment, the probate court. I got that from Cody.
yeah,
That
yep,
that line, and I was like, oh, I like that.
yep,
You know,
yep.
I like that. So I use that. I don't use it all the time. I used it on this one.
Yeah, 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 and it's funny. One thing that I don't use all the time is I will say, so your beneficiary will get the money, and they don't even have to pay taxes on it, right?
Oh,
So that's
yeah,
that's
which
something
is
else.
true. Which is very
Yeah,
true. I mean,
it is exact truth. Yes,
yeah, yeah.
and a lot of people don't think of that. But just like you said, I don't say it on every single call.
I'm
There
going to
are,
use that.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's
that's
the
a
thing
good
that I
question.
learned
That's
in
a good
sales
point.
too. Especially, when you're doing B2C like this, um, a lot of people, you think that people know the details of what they're looking into because they're
Right.
looking into it, but they oftentimes don't. And that's why I believe it's so important just to take the call with an educational take, is
Hmm.
because you need to inform them. You need to let them know the facts. Now, there is a situation where you can way over inform them and wind up confusing
Yeah.
them, you know. So you want to
I
avoid
don't.
those
I
things.
definitely do not do that. I don't know enough to do that.
Yeah,
That's
right.
a good thing. Mm. All right. You're a young, right?
Correct.
And what is your height and your weight?
My height,
All right.
weight right now.
Oh, you're in good shape. That's good. That's good. Better than me, I'll tell you that. Do you smoke cigarettes at all? Do you smoke?
No,
You don't
no.
smoke. That's good. That's very good. As you know, it's very good for many reasons.
Okay.
All right. So write down for me 10, 10,000, 15,000, and 20,000, and leave a space next to each one. All right. And while I'm 10, 10, 15, and 20, yep. And while I'm getting your numbers, if we were to find something that makes sense, would there be any reason why you wouldn't want to do an application to see if you get approved?
Uh, no, wouldn't be no reason.
Okay. All right. So let's run the numbers here and let's see what we have. A lot of background noise on his. It was hard to hear him.
Yeah.
Nice guy though. SPLI. Okay, so give me 1 second. I may have to. I'm going to adjust those numbers because, and I'll tell you why. Because 10,000 is $104. So I don't want to get outside of your budget. If I go to 15 and 20, it's going to be over your budget. Do you want to hear those numbers, or do you want to stay around 10,000?
If it go run $104 dollars, that sounds good.
Okay, and 10,000 is enough for you?
That would be enough.
Okay. All right. So let's run an application, and let's see if you. I think you'll qualify. I think you'll do really well because you're healthy, right? So before we start with the application, there are two important things that the insurance company will need to run an application. First, they'll need your social, your full social. They do not do a credit check, but they do want to do the MIB, which is Medical Information Bureau. They run prescriptions. And this particular company does not need any banking information. Most of them do. 90% want a bank account. I don't need that right now, just to let you know. And what I'd like to do, before I ask you for any personal information, I'd like to send you my information so you know who I am. So are you okay with a text message?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to send you my business card, and I'm going to send that right now. Here is my business card. Let me send that over. And just let me know when you get it. Sometimes it takes a second. And on that business card, you'll have my personal cell phone and also my license number. And what that license number means is it's a federal government number where they fingerprint.
Okay, so I think we're going to just go ahead and cut it off there. Just a couple details that I want to go over. I will tell you again, fantastic job. When it comes to, I noticed that you complimented him a little bit, that he's healthy and everything. That is really key. I really want to point that out because I think a lot of people think complimenting somebody is, maybe what's the word that I'm looking
Phony
for?
a little bit.
Yeah. It comes off as a little bit fake.
Salesy,
Yes.
like really, you congratulate. Yeah.
Right. And that's, and you didn't do it in a way that it came off as such, right? Hey, good job, and that's not, you didn't go over the top. And that's what I want to point out. Right. Another thing is whenever it came to the application, this is another hard thing for people to do, but as you were getting the numbers, you asked, so if we find something that makes sense, is there any reason why you wouldn't want to see if you get approved? That is so huge. It's again, another thing that I don't necessarily ask on every single call.
I don't either.
Yes.
I forget to sometimes.
Yeah. But you could clearly tell that it was something to ask this time, I would say probably because he didn't sound overly anxious to share a ton of information or that he was ready.
Not at all. I didn't really know, even at this point, if he was just saying yes and not really, because he's not engaging with me.
Mm-hmm.
So that I wasn't really sure if he would qualify. I thought the other shoe would drop.
Yeah,
it was going too smoothly. There was no pushback, nothing. So
yeah, and sometimes you run into that. Sometimes you just get that, and it is what it is. It's you got to take the easy layups when you can get them. Because you never know when they're going to come around, and not all the time do they stick. But you can't, especially whenever you got an easy layup. That doesn't mean you don't take the shot. You got to take the shot, and you did.
And an important background on this call, and the reason I did this call, number one, is because it went well, obviously. But prior to this call, I don't remember the date on there, Ryan, when this call happened. I don't remember, but anyway, I'm only going into my third month. I think I'm in my second month now. September was training, October, November. So I'm going into my third month in December, but this was probably a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. And prior to that, I was having trouble because I was cutting the script off at going over to the tools and quoting. And then I left all that other stuff out. So I made it a point on this particular call. I said, no matter what I do, I'm following the script word for word.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was big for me because this, I think, not that I do this every time because now I can pivot a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
This was important for me to get on track.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was having a hard time, and I'm like, why is everyone making sales and I'm not? And then I said I have to follow the script, and I got the sale. It was eye opening. I'll put it that way.
Well, it's good. It's good, and sometimes that's just how we pick up on things and how we figure out what we need to do, and yeah, again, as we've said, you don't necessarily have to say the script verbatim, but you hit all the points. Again, in this call, the only reason why I have critiques in this call is only because in certain calls you would run the risk of losing it potentially, or maybe causing a little bit of distrust, and that's the
Yeah,
last thing you want
yeah,
to do in a call. So that's the only reason why I have critiques. But other than that, I mean, you've hit every single point. When you gave him the options, you said you had went over the options and you said something along the lines of, do you want to see more than that? I know
right.
it's over your budget, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
the only reason why that's why I bring that up is because it kind of lowers your confidence factor and your authority in the call. So by asking him what he wants to see now, it kind of allows him to take control and say, well, I like this or I don't like that, instead of you committed to giving him 10, 15, and 20,
yeah.
which
I should have done it.
my recommendation. So he wound up going with the 10. How much was the 10 again? Was it like 104 or something?
104. Yeah.
Okay. So my recommendation would have been actually like an 8, 10, and 12,
Yep.
because the 12 is just over 100. So when I get so they say they want 100, what I'll do is I want to get one below 100, one above
Hmm.
100, and then one just above the amount that they wanted, right? And
Yep.
the reason why is sometimes people would want something higher if you just offered it to them,
Right.
right?
Right. That's
Um,
the glaring mistake that I made there. I
yeah,
noticed that. Yeah.
yeah, and I wouldn't say that it was just god awful, right? Like he was likely to choose 100 no matter what, but
Maybe. Maybe.
exactly, and you don't know for sure until you actually go through and use it in that way. So yeah, definitely want to make sure that you're not asking, hey, do you want to see? If you're going to commit to something, just commit, so that way you remain that authority figure, you remain confident in what you're doing. You had said whenever it came to the 10,000, you said, okay,
Hmm.
so it's 104. Is that something that will fit your budget? That is perfect. But that is where you should have left it. You said, so is
Yeah.
100 or is 10,000 enough? And he obviously agreed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 10,000 is enough. Great. That's
Hmm.
wonderful, right? So again, this is a situation where he was probably going to buy no matter what.
I think so. Yeah.
But you want to avoid asking that question because now, well, maybe can I see what 15 is? And then he sees that 15 is 150. Okay. So Chris, why don't you give me a couple days to think about that? And maybe I can afford that 15, right?
Oh God, that's
And
horrible.
where that takes you. It takes you down
Yeah.
the path of you call them on Wednesday whenever they
No
ask you to
sale.
at 10 o'clock and they don't ever answer the damn phone.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a no sale. It's a
And
no sale.
do
No.
you know why that's typically the case? Because
I
they
don't know.
are professional procrastinators. Now you've given them something else to procrastinate about, because now it's a decision. They're not and again, I'm not trying to be rude or hurtful in any way to the demographic
Hmm.
that we're speaking to, but it's just the honest truth that they are very good at procrastinating with things. look, I get people get busy and everything, but this is something that if you don't get it, I mean, this guy had prostate cancer. For God's sakes, he
Right,
absolutely needs
right.
to get something in place.
It ge-
So
it would it gives him a reason, a
to think,
legitimate reason to procrastinate now.
yes,
Oh, well, I have to. It makes sense. I can't. Right. There's no guilt there because, I don't know. I got to keep shopping.
yes,
Maybe I.
yes,
Yeah, I've had it. I mean, I've in my
yeah,
short career, I've had it.
right, yeah, and like I said, that's why I would say, not to ask him, if that's enough or whatever, because and
Yeah.
also it can turn the script and he'll be like, well, I don't know, Chris, is that enough? Is that should I have more? And then you're like, well, the average burial is 10,000,
Oh God. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
he's like, well, my grandma's was 14,000, and it just starts adding and compounding, and
Right. Right.
and in this
Now,
case,
sorry, I've got a question. I don't want
yeah,
to forget. Now, when I said 10, 15, 20, that was just kind of random. Like I didn't have, so when you're doing that, and I'm not good at this point about multitasking, like talking to you about just meaningless stuff. Like, hey, Ryan, how long have you lived? And then doing all the quoting in the background. So I have it. You can hear me kind of talking through the quote,
hmm
which is Cody would mention to me, you should already have that done. Ask him
yeah,
questions. And I'm not
yeah.
good at that yet. I get distracted. So, how would let's say you did 10, 15, 20, you wouldn't have gone that high for him because you know his age and like
No,
how
I literally will. So I don't multitask quite as much as Cody either, right? Like I'm
I'm
very much the
terrible
same
at it.
way. Like if I kind of get off track, then I'll start to screw things up,
Me
and
too. Yeah.
and I don't see any need to multitask, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
honestly not trying to issue 5 policies every single day unless they're all laid down, I'm ready to put in an
Yeah.
application, right?
Yeah.
So, so my focus is making sure that I get everything right. I'm extremely anal, and I've learned
Hmm.
that I'm
Hmm.
also not that guy who's going to get it done like in 15 minutes. And to be honest with you, if you're making a
Me either.
life sale, either you're selling your grandma or you're doing it wrong. You shouldn't be making a sale that fast. So,
Yeah.
my
Right.
theory is I usually say anywhere from about 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes should be beginning to end for someone who booked an appointment or who you've never talked to. The sales process should be an hour, right around an hour's long, right?
Hmm.
And yours is going to be somewhere around that. I know you had
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
issues with banking to get it all completed, but this is going to be somewhere around that. And that's good, right? And the reason
Hmm.
is you've that means they've got some intent. If they're just trying to rush you to quote, rush you to get the application done, then they don't typically have a true desire. I'm not saying don't do the app, by the way. If someone wants to go
Right.
through the
Right. Do
application,
do the app anyway. Yeah.
yes, yes. But just be prepared for that possible chargeback. So,
When
um,
they say $100 to you, that portion where he said, "Wow, if it's 104, that looks great." Then how would you do the three numbers? What would you go to? I guess that's my
yes.
question.
So here's what I do. Okay, so someone says $100, as soon as possible, I'm plugging in no information other than basically like I'm trying to get the idea of where we're at. Okay.
Okay.
So what I would do is plug in the premium amount. So put in $100, make him healthy as can be, and
Hmm.
then run the number to see where $100 gets you. If it says, oftentimes what it'll do is it'll say, for $100, you can get $10,000, 200, $10,233 in coverage.
Yeah,
Obviously,
right.
you're
Right.
not going to give somebody that coverage. I don't recommend that. Keep it
Hmm.
even numbers so people don't get confused, right? Um, but that gives you an idea of where $100 is.
Hmm.
Okay. So once you've got that, now you know that $100 is at 10,200, right? So
Gotcha. Okay.
you want to do just below that. So you're going to do 8,000. And again, if they're older, you're going to have smaller amounts are going to be bigger jumps in dollar amounts. In other words,
Mhm.
if you're older, from 5,000 to 10,000 is a bigger jump. From
Yeah,
10,000 to
it's
15,000.
compounded because of their age. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got a younger person, you're dealing with somebody who's 50, now you can do, maybe even 20,000, 30,000, 40,000.
Right.
You see?
Right.
So, but yeah, you get that middle mark. What I always do is I get that middle mark, figure out where the middle mark is, and
Mhm.
then I build outward from there.
Do you always get budget? Always?
Always. Never do I skip budget. Ever.
Okay, so you have them give you a range.
Yes, yes. Unless I know it, right? Like unless um for example, they tell me they had a policy but their dog died and they had to, or they had to pay to get their dog cremated or something. So they
Yeah.
wound up letting go of the policy.
God, that's
Right. It's
so
awful.
sad.
It's awful,
Oh,
right?
we're giving you a free policy today, man.
Right. Right. So
Oh.
what I'll do is I'll say, oh, okay, so roughly how much were you paying monthly for that policy? And they'll say, oh, it
Mhm.
was $75, right?
Yeah, so
And
then yeah.
so what I'll do is I'll say, so was that $75 actually comfortable for you? Or
Mm,
do you feel like you would actually rather pay less?
gotcha. Yeah,
Because that's
that's a
really
good
key.
question.
A lot of people assume that someone had a policy for $150. Oh, well, they can afford $150.
That
But
may
that's
be the reason they don't have it, right? I mean,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So
What if they, Ryan, what if they, because sometimes I have issue with when I'm asking budget, they'll say, well, most people will be okay with it, but then others will be like, well, I don't know. It depends. How much coverage can I get? So they're using that excuse. They're like, well, why would I give you my budget? Why don't you just run the numbers?
yes, yeah. So uh, the first thing that I'll do is try to get them to understand why I'm asking budget, right?
Yeah.
And so the first thing that I'll do is I'll say, "Hey, look, Chris, absolutely. Here's the most important thing to understand. Whenever it comes to life insurance, it's based on your age and your health. Your age is
Mhm.
something you and I can't change. So it doesn't matter what you want or what I want. You're going to get what is appropriate for your age. My
Mhm.
goal is to try and get you approved for the lowest amount possible. So that's why I'm asking budget. Is there something specific that you're looking for? And if they push back again and they say, oh, I just want to know what 30,000 is. I have learned, or in my experience, I just allow them to go there. And what I'll
Mhm.
do is you're either going to find somebody who's actually serious
Mhm.
or someone who has unrealistic expectations. So I'll
God,
take
that's
someone who's
yeah.
healthy. Yeah. If they say, look, I just want 30,000 or I want to see what 30,000 is. The first question I ask, this is super important if you're just going to
Mhm.
jump right into quote like this. Okay. The first thing I ask is, so Chris, tell me, if you can't afford 30,000, are you just not going to get any insurance?
I like that. That's good.
And if the response is, well, yeah, I mean, if I can't get 30,000, this is dumb. I will probably, unless they're just a complete jackass, I will probably lob a number out there to them just to see.
Yeah.
But in most cases, I'm like, okay, and I'll just, sometimes I'll push back on them, but a lot of times I'll just lob a number out there and see what their situation is. Now, if they come back and they say, well, no, obviously, Ryan. I mean, I just want to get an idea of what I'm looking at here so I can
Mhm.
get a better grasp of things or whatever.
Yeah.
And if they say that, then I'll say, okay, Chris, I completely understand. So you're at least reasonable. You do want to get coverage. You're not just trying to leave your family a ton of money. You're just wanting to get what's best for them. What's going to make the most sense for you, right? So you kind of compliment them that they are reasonable, because sometimes you're I find that if you create more friction in that area, people start to get really ridiculous.
Mhm.
and then they feel like you're trying to sell them something, which is obviously the opposite of what we're trying to do.
Right.
But you've got to relieve that pressure. Anytime you're being combative with somebody, that means they're putting pressure on. They're going to be resistant to whatever you want to
Mm-hmm.
offer. So they're going to be trying to find the holes. Whereas if you're not combative, well, I mean, he's not pushing back on me, and I don't feel like he's forcing me anywhere. I've made all the decisions. I've told him where to go.
Yeah. They don't want to be forced, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
100%.
And it's interesting how many people, I mean, I already know in my short time immediately who that unrealistic, and usually when they say what you said, I 50,000. I don't know. And I say, how did you come to that number? Like, can you break that down for me? Well, just kind of an even number, 50 grand. I just want to know what it is. And then I know, I'm like, I'm not getting this. This guy's not going to buy insurance most of the time. I'll still do what you did and give him a number, but that's a red flag right there.
And I would still really get used to asking. So, Chris, if you can't get 50,000, because that's where dude, there's been times where I'm like, look, if their answer, so if I say, okay, Chris, if I can't get you 50,000 and or if you can't afford 50,000 in coverage,
Mhm.
are you just going to not get anything? And your answer to me is, no, I'm not getting anything. Screw that. Then I will say, there are some times where I'm like, look, when you're realistic, look, Chris, you're 82. You're never going to get 50,000 for what you want, right? Like, I don't even have to show you the price. Like, sometimes I'll just flat out tell people that, even if they're like 75,
Yeah,
you're not
yeah.
going to
I'm
get
with you.
50,000 for what you want. But
That's a great question. That's a
yeah,
great question. That's one that I will, because I didn't really know how to handle that. And now I
yeah,
do, because that's a right. That puts you so you're not wasting time with this person.
yes, yes, yeah, and that's exactly right. Sometimes I enjoy to do that so that way I can get them off the phone and get the gratification of you're not getting a quote out of me, buddy. Like, because
Right.
some people
Right.
just
I'm
want to
not doing
waste your
this.
time.
I'm not
Yes.
playing this game. Right.
And
Right.
the thing I've been trying to help other agents with too is explaining to them why they're not going to get that. So listen, Chris, you're 75 and all life insurance, I don't care what type of life insurance you look into, no
Mhm.
matter what the name of it is, they're all going to look at your age. You could be the healthiest person on the earth. Nobody's going to make up some magical number for you. And you will
Right.
never see a price. You'll never, at the age of 80, you're never going to see 50,000 for $50 a month. Never, ever.
It makes no sense. It doesn't. It's just not logical.
But this goes back to like what we talked about earlier. These people don't know what they don't know.
Right. They've heard
And some
the
of them
ads on
have
TV. Yeah.
Alzheimer's.
Right. It's true. They have no right. They don't know what they remember hearing, and the TV commercials set them up for 10
Yes.
bucks for $100,000 policy,
Hmm. Exactly.
So,
Exactly. So, one last thing here before we cut things off. So, I wanted to point out one other thing that this is a little bit more of a little bit larger thing, and
mhm,
that is whenever you went to banking,
mhm.
I didn't hear you ask the question: is that going to be any problem today?
Right. I got you. That's
And
really
again,
important. Yeah.
this is a situation where this guy was it wasn't a big deal, he's not one of those that it pertains to, but you absolutely want to ask that. And again, for the audience and everything, the reason why that's so important is because when you get to those two pieces of information, when you get to the social, when you get to the banking, if you've already asked, so we're going to need these two things. Is that going to be any
Mhm.
problem today? And you get to them and they're like, oh man, well, hey, look, we talked earlier and that was no issue. What did I do wrong to make you feel like you don't trust me? Right? Like turn it around on yourself and,
Yeah. Yeah.
and make it, kind of like a victim situation, as terrible as that
Mhm.
sounds. Well, what did I do wrong to you, Chris? When you do that, then it flips the script and allows them to kind of let loose or relax a little bit with you that, oh man, I didn't
Yeah.
do anything wrong, he didn't do anything wrong, I don't want him to think that. So
I have been. I noticed that I don't know if it's common, but I'm better at it now than I was a month ago. Is asking for the banking. I get uncomfortable with it. I feel like, God, are they really going to give me the banking? You know what I mean? My voice changes. I can feel it.
Yep.
So I'm like, I'm almost apprehensive about asking the banking, and I'm like, well, SBLI doesn't ask for it, so
Yeah. Yeah.
so, and I
And
know
that's
I
the
do
thing.
that.
If you get, I will tell you that will make you so much better, and you'll have a whole lot less paperwork laying around on your desk if you
Yeah,
just get the confirmation about
up
banking and social.
ahead. Yeah,
And if you do them together, again, the way we kind of design the script is to pair things up so you're not just saying, well, will you give me your banking? Right? Like
yeah,
you're
right.
saying,
Yeah, that's
so there's
odd
two
to
things,
ask.
and you're making it sound simple. And look, you are a professional. You were licensed to do this correctly, and in
Hmm.
order for you to do this correctly, you have to have banking. You have to have a
Right,
social.
right,
If you
right.
don't have that, and know that since you have to have that information to do your job, then just know that that's the question that you have to ask. And that's where I get my
Yeah,
conviction on I why I'm so confident in what I'm saying is, look, it's something I got to have. I don't care if you don't like it or not.
they're all going to ask for banking.
They're all going to ask for banking.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
what no matter what kind of crazy story their mother's friend's best friend brother told them, they're all going to ask for banking. And if that's really the hang up, then they're probably not serious in the first place.
right, right. And
So,
I don't run into it as much. And I'd say the last month or so, last month, I got much more comfortable doing it.
mhm.
And I think that's part of the reason that the numbers were better. At all these little things, I guess.
Yep.
Just, time on task and
Yep.
getting at bats,
And this is a perfect thing to show everybody. Chris is working on 3 months now. You know, this is the process that it takes. I mean, sometimes I've actually seen the opposite where people pick up all pieces of it right out the gate, and then they start to get comfortable down the road, and then they stop doing the things that made them successful in the beginning, which
Mm,
is following
I
the
could see
script,
that.
asking the right questions. So,
They think
um,
they have it figured out.
yeah, yeah, and you just sometimes you
Yeah.
get so many laydowns that all of a sudden you start to forget that there's a process to this. Not everybody just calls up wanting insurance.
Absolutely a
So
process. Yep.
you just always got to keep that frame of mind. But all things considered, guys, we'll cut it off here. Me and Chris will stop rambling. And we really appreciate you guys listening in. If you guys have any questions, drop them down in the comments below. And again, if you wouldn't mind, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. With that said, guys, see you in the next one.